Podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm here with Joe Wood, and we're joined by Nicola Roke from Danton HR. Hi, Nicola. How are you?
Well, I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
We're good, aren't we, Joe?
Really good.
Busy.
Busy.
We've had a really busy day. We've had lots going on behind the scenes. We launched a piece of software called Hey Monica, which has been going incredibly well. Lots of excitement around that. But I feel like it's created a second full-time job for both of us. So
Yes.
we're here for a chat and a bit of recovery, which will be like fill our cups.
Here we go then.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Nicola, do you want to start by telling us a bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm Nicola. I run Danton HR, which is an HR and training business based in Worcestershire. I'm a mum of three. My children are teenagers, and I've got one 20-year-old as well. So I juggle being a mum and also running kind of a busy HR and training consultancy.
Wow. And when did you decide to do that? What was your background, and when did you start your own business?
Yeah, so I kind of right at the start, I did a business management degree, and it was a case of, right, what am I going to do afterwards? And I was really interested on the employment law side. I thought about, becoming an employment lawyer, or did I want to go into HR? And it was just a case that I kind of ended up falling into HR. So I went into employment for a number of years, really, really enjoyed that. But something just kind of sparked in my mind towards having children and kind of, that whole juggling act of actually, I'd really love to work with small to medium-sized businesses who actually don't have the luxury of the in-house HR teams that I was part of for so many years. So it was a great opportunity after child number 3. I got voluntary redundancy, which I was really fortunate to secure. And it just started evolving really, really slowly, started providing HR services to people within my own network. It grew very, very slowly. It was all about being a mum to start with. For a number of years, it was about being a mum. And I just kind of, did bits every now and then just kind of going into COVID, it all went a little bit crazy. And it just ramped up from there. My children got to a certain age where they were more independent, they were in school full time, and it kind of gave me the mental capacity to then think about baby number 4, Danton. But really kind of, actually, it was about juggling everything. It was about trying to be a half decent mum, trying to build something for the future. And that really was just kind of how it evolved.
It's really interesting because, like, the role you've taken on is a similar role to what bookkeepers, and like we've started
really
a business,
similar.
So similar,
yeah.
But we're providing a service that is needed in business, and we will need to have that service in our own business. So bookkeepers need to make sure that their bookkeeping is done, and you're building a team, and you need to make sure that HR is done. So
absolutely.
we're in a very similar thing. People get really scared. We speak, we absolutely celebrate when somebody builds their team, because we know that you create a self-employed job if you're on your own, and that's absolutely fine. If that's what you choose, you can absolutely do that. But if you want to build a business, it's going to need to be more than you, or else you are the whole business. But people get really a bit scared about, when is the right time? How do I know it's the right time to hire somebody? Can you help decide on that?
Gosh, there's so many different points that you might think about that. A lot of people go self-employed and they just want to essentially employ themselves, do work when they want to do work, build to a capacity, and then that's it for them, and they're really happy with that, and that's fine. Others actually want to build a business and they want to grow beyond their own capacity, so they do take on other people. Sometimes that tipping point is them finding out that they're working ridiculous hours. So I was at a point a few years ago where, I'd get my children into bed and I'd kind of, clear up the house and I'd start working again. And all of a sudden, convinced myself that I was a night owl because I was working till midnight. But actually, it was about capacity as well. And part of that is really nice because you are your own boss and you can decide when you want to do work. The tipping point is when you wouldn't necessarily choose to do it, but then you feel like you have to because there's only one of you. So that might be a point where you're thinking about bringing somebody else on. You might be starting to refer business to other people, thinking, actually, I'd quite like to keep that business for myself. You might be using associates as well. And you might be thinking, do you know what? actually using associates is quite expensive, and it might be that it's now time to bring somebody in. It might be that you need somebody in there to do an extension of you, but the bits that you don't necessarily enjoy, or the bits that you're not necessarily good at. So you could be an expert in your area, but there are other bits within the business, as the business grows, that you might need help on as well. So you might need, my first route in was getting a virtual assistant who was beyond amazing. And that was kind of my step and venture into that kind of employed world. And it was the bits that I needed that help on in order for me to deliver HR services and support to my clients. And then things moved on where I was bringing HR consultants into the business. And then over time kind of reached the point, actually, I'm not really doing as much of or I wouldn't necessarily choose to do as much of the HR or training that I used to really, really enjoy and wanted to fill all of my time with. Actually, now it's about running the business. And if somebody has that mental shift in their minds to think, actually, I'd rather deliver the services through other people and I'd rather build something now, that's a kind of great tipping point to start thinking about bringing other people in as well.
I brought in my first team member. Like I had in my bookkeeping business, the first person I actually brought in was somebody who was at university doing their degree, and there was like a funded scheme. And because I did that, yes. I had a lot of tick boxes where I had to do things, and it was really prescribed. This is what you have to do to be a good employer. And that was actually really reassuring, because I didn't think I was big enough to think about having HR support, which is a whole other mindset, isn't it? But the first reason I really brought somebody in to work more than a few hours a week was because I was pregnant. And I was like, I can either carry on doing this or I cannot. And so I have to make a decision. In fact, someone said to me, you have to make a decision. Are you going to hire somebody, or are you going to not do this work anymore? So it was, I felt like I was almost sort of told, and there was like a massive shift in me of, oh, now I have to step back and run the business and lead the business. But I definitely started it thinking I'm a freelancer and it's just me, and I'm going to keep this based on how much time I've got available. But do you see that happen a lot with entrepreneurs? They will shift from setting out as a solopreneur and then deciding they do have what it takes to lead the business.
And yes, definitely. And part of it actually is what people fundamentally enjoy spending their time doing. So a lot of people fundamentally enjoy spending their time doing the bookkeeping, doing the HR, doing the training, doing the accountancy, doing the whatever, particularly on the professional services side. All of these different types of business people really enjoy. They kind of choose to go into a profession, and a number of people will spend their entire career doing the work. You do see a shift with some people where they suddenly think, you know what, actually I quite enjoy doing the other bits as well. There's a really good book, I don't know whether you've heard of it, Michael Gerber, The E-Myth, and he talks about those three different levels. So you've got your technician, you've got your manager, then your entrepreneur. Actually, I always recommend that book. For me, is like, it's game changing in terms of really, really compartmentalizing things in your brain to think, right, okay, where am I at the moment and where do I want to be? And it's fine to be in any of those different places, providing it suits you and actually you're getting what you want out of your own business.
Absolutely. We love that book. All-time favorite.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the best. I think it gave me the biggest shift in my brain of and I think it's because there's stories in there. I always think of he goes to the hotel and there's the fireplace and everything, and then next time things are a bit different and it messes with his head, and I'm like, yes, I'm like that, and thinking and giving myself permission that I can create those systems in my business. It's brilliant. So so we've established that there might be a need at some point. There'll be a trigger. And actually, when Zoe said that we hear this so often that someone's like, oh, I've got an operation coming up, or I've got to look after a parent, or I'm having a baby. All of those at the time can feel like, but they're actually amazing opportunities to force yourself into making that change. And like we said, people get to choose. They can say, actually, this is not for me. I'm going to dial back. But when you are thinking about taking on that first hire, what are some of the first things you need to really think about with regards to, obviously people know that they want to find a good fit and they want to find someone that can do the job, and they mostly think, oh, I'm good. But what are the things that people don't think about from an HR point of view that they you know, because I got really scared about HR, and I ended up taking I got a 5-year license with a big HR firm. You'll know who they are, most probably.
Yes.
And I ended up paying monthly because I was so scared, and I just thought, I'm just going to pay somebody right now. And that was before I had an employee, because I knew I was going to grow. So I ended up spending a lot of money. Now, I don't regret it, because there were some times when I did call on them, but emotionally was quite costly for me. But if you're not going to go down that kind of route, what should you be thinking about?
So I always get a little bit gutted when I hear about that sort of thing, because yes, there are some elements that feel a little bit scary when you're taking on somebody for the first time. And yes, there absolutely are employment laws that we have to comply with in this country, and there are legal requirements. But actually, we can break them down into really kind of simple things that need to be done. And the key, I would say, is just preparation. So think about what needs to be done, plan it, think about budgets, kind of think about what you need to do taking on your first employee, and almost don't think 6 months down the line just yet. Think about what you need to do. Number one, to comply with the law, and that's things around making sure that somebody has got a contract in place no later than day one. Yes, making sure that somebody does have the right to work in the UK no later than day one. These are really important contractual things. In addition to that, actually put yourself in the shoes of the person who's coming in to work with you. If you were them, actually, what would feel like a really good first day? What would feel really, feel like a really good first week in terms of an experience coming into the business? So of course you need your systems and process in place. Of course you need the right documentation in place. But actually, it is just about making sure that experience feels really positive. Sometimes you might bring in for the first time, your first employee. It might be somebody that you've known for years. They're a great fit. You can wing it a little bit. That you can just kind of, wade through. You're really busy. Kind of, you bring them in. They have to hit the ground running. If you're bringing somebody in who you're not familiar with, actually, that's their first impression of your business, isn't it? So it's all about planning and preparing and thinking about things like a probationary period, which doesn't necessarily at the moment have legal standing. Like there's no legal attachment to a probationary period. It's a trial period for you. You'd have different notice periods within a probationary period compared to somebody, who you had signed off saying, yeah, you're great for the role. But it's just about making sure that you do really outline clearly what expectations you would have of somebody in the role, and making sure that your documentation is saved correctly, and that you are making sure that even if you haven't got a fancy, well laid out document called a job description, you're really clear on what you want that person to do, so they know what success looks like at the end of a busy day, a busy week, a busy month within the first few months of their employment.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? And I think that there is an element of when you are new to hiring, that you might bring someone into the business who's quite comfortable with you learning on the go and really easy breezy, but also that it is their job, like it's their job and their livelihood. So they do need to know that they're actually being looked after, as much as they know you care about getting it right. There are certain things you've got to do.
Yeah, there are certain things, and you want it to feel like, yes, you want to feel like a really positive working environment, but actually you want it to feel professional. It's your business. You want to you want to present yourself in the way that you want to present yourself, and that is about being professional, and them being really proud, and you being really proud of what you're developing and growing and what you're building as a business. But it does kind of, the first employee, it does feel a little bit scary. We try and reduce that fear. We don't want to build up any of that fear. And it's about planning. It's about preparing. It's about just kind of, making sure that making sure that you do the right things, but going beyond the contractual piece, it's just about framing those first few days, weeks, months.
What are the what kind of mistakes do you see people making when they're hiring or managing people?
Gosh, so not understanding that you need to have a contract from day one. People think you've got a couple of months, and we don't anymore. So not really understanding notice periods kind of correctly, not really knowing how to handle somebody who goes off sick, and kind of not really knowing how to deal with them. It's just, a lot of it just comes down to a little bit of knowledge, and just having knowledge, just having a bit of information, knowing where to go to ask those questions. And a lot of it can feel like they're big issues, but actually breaking things down, nipping things in the bud. So we find a lot, missed opportunities through fear of kind of confrontation, or fear of starting a conversation, almost avoiding tackling those kind of, any issues early. So allowing things to happen when maybe conversations should have been started sooner, that then feel like they become much bigger in terms of conversations, in terms of kind of actions and activity that you might need to do, not necessarily making notes on things. So you have a conversation, you pick somebody up about something that they could have done slightly differently, a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes, don't they? But repeated mistakes, and then we get a really frustrated employer, and it's like, oh, so what have you done to this point? And it's all been conversations that haven't kind of been documented, or kind of nothing followed up after a conversation. Those are some of the things that we see, that we see quite a lot. Recruiting because you think someone's a great person, they haven't necessarily got the skills to do the job. And we always encourage to recruit based on fit as well. And it goes an awful long way. But actually, if what they believe the job is different to what the job is, and you've got this mismatch in terms of skills and in terms of expectations, that can be quite difficult. So somebody coming in thinking that they're doing one thing, and then all of a sudden you're expecting them to do something completely different. So being upfront about what the role is, and just having that clarity, and knowing that, having people understand what is expected of them is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I just sort of reflect on, I always say to Joe, I'm a really bad people manager, which I don't think is completely true. It's not necessarily like my perfect spot in the business, because I like to do what I need to do when I need to do it. And that doesn't always work so well with people and schedules and things. Don't know what that says about me. Read into that what you like. But I think that I found as a leader that it can be, when it's just you on your own, and you're making these decisions that are vital for your business because you need the right person to do that job, it can feel very difficult to trust your own judgment, and very lonely when you haven't got any. So I didn't have HR support. There are helplines and things like that provided by our professional bodies and things like that, but I didn't ever think to ask somebody in HR to support me through a recruitment process. And I think that I can think of one hire particularly, and actually that person wasn't a great fit, and they probably knew they weren't a great fit, but it was also very difficult to then say, well, I've made a mistake and now I haven't got the time to go and change that. And so I think that it can feel like a very lonely situation. How can you work with somebody like you to support? Can you work with somebody like you to support you through a one-off project like that?
We do. I mean, we work with, we work with a number of businesses of different sizes, actually, thinking about how they find, on board, and go through an induction for new people. And really that, your relationship with your new starter actually starts in some instances before you've even advertised a job, because they will see your brand, however your brand is presented, they'll see your brand kind of before they see you. If you're going to, if you are quite frequently posting on social media, they've heard about you, they've heard about your business. So kind of, you know, how you present yourself right from day one is super important. But thinking about, you know, the ways that we work with businesses who are looking at bringing people in, we start from, what do you need from the role? So what does success look like out of this role? Not necessarily the person, but out of the role. And what kind of fit are you looking for in terms of that person? You know, we can help if you have to go through like formal recruitment processes. We can help on job descriptions, even things like the words that you put into a job advert and job descriptions. Things like that will resonate with the people who then become attracted to your business because of the kind of the language that you're using, the way you might describe a role, the way you might describe, you know, what a typical working day looks like, the benefits that you might offer. All of these things actually can help you attract the best fit of people into your business. And you talk about, you know, the example of, you know, where you made a mistake, and look, it's not mistakes, is it? It's just learning about fit and about people. And actually it is an inexact science as well. So you bring somebody into the business, you can give it your best shot at finding the best person, but there's no guarantee of, you know, of success. But one of the things that you might be thinking about to do with fit could well be, what's my style? How do I operate? How do I work? You know, do I give absolute clarity? And do I, you know, dot I's and cross T's on instructions? Is it written instructions? Is it verbal instructions? Do I expect people to use their own initiative? Do I expect people to kind of freestyle a little bit? Actually, you see things through your own lens, but businesses work in different ways, and individuals will come into a business, and some individuals need a lot more instruction, they need a lot more interaction with their boss, they need a lot more guidance, they need a lot more feedback, a lot more reassurance, and some people don't. Some people come in and they're quite happy with a very high level instruction, and they're quite happy with the freedom to just kind of get on with the job and, you know, see how they get on with it. Other people need a lot more detail. And so that can be one of the things where if you're looking for fit, you know, that's just an example of how we also, you know, help businesses look at fit. Joe and I were talking about disc profiling, for example, you know, before we started. Actually, different styles attract kind of different ways of working. And it's helpful just to kind of understand and have insight around different people's ways of working, what motivates people, what, you know, switches people off. Some people like the detail, some people feel a little bit claustrophobic by too much detail and they feel like they're being micromanaged. So we can help with all of that on the onboarding and the induction side. You know, we can just help with making sure, you know, that there is that structure in place around induction processes, what a great induction you know, process would look and feel like for a new starter, how you might manage a probationary period, even things like, you know, signing off a probationary period at the end and not kind of letting it drift. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're on 3 months and we're now on month 5. You're doing a great job, kind of, you know, crack on. Some people are fine with that. Other people are like, oh my gosh, they haven't confirmed my probation and they want it in writing. And, you know, that's all back to different people, different businesses, different styles.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I think as well, because it's a bit like, I remember my daughter saying to me something like, sometimes I just think about the fact, Mum, you've never been this age before and you're living this life for the first time too. And being a boss, I think sometimes we have this feeling of like, we've looked up at our bosses in the past and thought, well, they've got everything sorted and together, but actually everyone's just going through trying their best. So
we're all just winging it a little bit.
Yeah.
We're doing our best.
We're just doing our best, winging it a little bit. And I think because we've been employees in the past, we think we looked up so much to our bosses and were scared and thought, oh my goodness, they're this amazing person, they've got everything together. And to put ourselves in that position, we're like, whoa, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. So I just think it's interesting that actually it's a bit like, and business as a whole is always a new learning journey, and as long as we've got the best intentions at heart and we're trying our best. And I think that is maybe one of the hardest things about being a leader, is that not everybody feels and thinks the same way as you. And something I learned is that I think, oh wow, I'd love a cash bonus, or I'd love this, I'd love that, but other people might want half a day off or something like that. Stop treating everyone how you think, because you shouldn't actually assume, because actually we don't always know. We had a couple of questions in from some of our members, so I thought I'd ask one of those now.
Go for it.
Yes, how often and at what points in someone's employment should their contract be reviewed or updated? And with regards to like policies and pay and holiday, if you have got a standardized contract, how often should we be reviewing it?
So when employment law changes, and you have to kind of revisit clauses within contracts, and I'm thinking something like, maybe you have to build in additional benefits information into a contract. You need to build in additional training information into a contract. Actually, it's not necessarily needing to completely reissue a brand new contract. Contract amendment letters in the main are absolutely fine. So you change somebody's pay, you'd issue a contract amendment letter. You absolutely wouldn't need to issue a brand new contract to them. If you decided to change somebody's terms and conditions around holiday or around working hours or a job title or something, again, it's back to a contract amendment letter. And what we don't want to do is kind of create this absolute kind of, admin burden headache on businesses, when you only need to break things down into kind of simple elements. So where there are fundamental changes, or where a contract, was issued, and we get lots of clients, their contracts were issued like 10 years ago and they need a complete refresh. We'd go through a process with the team about, refreshing, updating, and maybe reissuing contracts, but it's quite an unusual thing to do. Policy updates. It's good practice to review your policies every 18 months, 2 years. In reality, we're all incredibly busy, and genuinely, I don't know many businesses who go through, policy review processes routinely, because they've got a lot of work on their plates. And, from a business perspective, unless something fundamentally changes, they'll just kind of revisit and update if the need arises. Where there are changes, again, back to employment law, we've seen lots of changes on the, on family policies. We've seen changes around, various other elements. You might update a policy, you might reissue a policy, but actually, what we don't want to do is create a lot of work where, we don't need to.
What, just for like the layperson, what is the issue with if you issued a new contract rather than a contract amendment letter? What's the difference?
If you're offering, I mean, I'm thinking in the context of, a contract might be 5 or 6 or 7 pages long with various different clauses that actually don't change at all if you're just changing someone's pay. So let's say you're changing the hourly rate of somebody from £11 to £11.25, for example. You would simply do a contract amendment letter that amends someone's contract, but you're not reissuing a full several page contract to them that just says, this is the change, all other terms and conditions remain unchanged. Okay, and it's just a very simple paper trail.
And it's not like there isn't like a legal reason why you would rather not send the whole contract again, or I suppose that's what I'm thinking.
They'd have the whole contract anyway. Essentially, You'd be duplicating. You'd be duplicating work for yourself, and you'd be
Okay, cool. Are there things that we should be thinking about in the future that are in the near future that are coming up from an HR point of view that bookkeepers should have on the horizon for potential changes to the way they employ people?
So there's been a lot of discussion recently about changes that are coming through as a result of Labour's appointment or election into government. There's a lot of talk at the moment, and things are out for consultation around bringing unfair or changing unfair dismissal legislation and thresholds and timescales. There are changes around entitlements to do with family policies. So, there are lots of changes, yes. I'm not one for scaring, overwhelming or anything. The simple advice that we're giving to employers at this stage is just make sure that probationary periods are managed effectively. So make sure that you've got a probationary period within somebody's contract, and make sure that you're managing the performance elements of that effectively. Make sure that you're having probation reviews, make sure that you're confirming, or if you're not quite happy with somebody at the point of kind of when your probation is being reviewed, just extend them. Our advice is build 6-month probationary periods into contracts as opposed to 3. 6 months gives you longer for somebody to get into the flow of work and really kind of drive and deliver results. So yes, there will be changes coming down the line, but let's not panic about it, kind of thing, really.
And if you're not happy with somebody in their probation period, are you able to just like end the contract, or does the probationary period give you a little bit more of a opportunity to end it in an easier way than, or do you still have to go through many hoops to, because I think that's what people are like, well, if I bring someone on, am I stuck with them forever?
Yeah, you're absolutely not stuck with people forever if they're not delivering what you need them to deliver for the business. You have to make sure that you go through a fair process around bringing someone's employment to an end. So if you've got somebody within probation and it's not working out, and it's not working out, they know it's not working out, you can either kind of bring it to an end fairly quickly, or you can outline expectations and put in kind of review periods. You should always have review periods in probationary periods anyway. You might do them once a month. You might do them, you might have catch-ups and then formal stage reviews. If it's really, really not working out, then you simply have to make sure that you are complying with the contract and that you're not in breach of your own contract. So we would expect you to give somebody notice for a meeting, give them a heads up, actually, that the reason for the meeting is because of performance, that an outcome of the meeting might be that you bring their employment to an end. Be fair, be upfront, allow so they know what to expect going into the meeting. You don't have to give them the right of appeal at that stage if you do bring their employment to an end, but we always recommend that you do give somebody the right to appeal, just in case you've missed something, you've missed an important piece of information that you weren't aware of that may or may not make a decision, a difference to your decision. Fundamentally, you absolutely, if you're bringing somebody's employment to an end, you have to give them the right notice. You have to pay them the right notice or give them the right notice. You're not likely to want them to carry on working for a week in your business if actually you're saying that they're not, that they're not succeeding. So if they're on a week's notice, make sure that you pay them that week. Otherwise, you'll be in breach of contract.
Makes sense. We have one more question from another member. How do I work out pro rata holidays, including bank holidays? Does it depend on if they usually work a Monday? We know, obviously, bookkeeping, payroll.
Yeah.
It gives us all
headache. It is. It's difficult. We try and break it down into really kind of simple, a simple way to calculate it. So working time regulations, 5.6 weeks is what people are entitled to, which is 28 days. If somebody is working set hours or set days, actually it's quite easy to calculate. So if somebody's working 1 day a week, you work out 1/5 of 28 days, that is their entitlement, and they have to take their holiday days on their normal working days. So if a bank holiday falls on a normal working day, then absolutely they would have to use their holiday. If it doesn't fall on a normal working day, then they don't have to use their holiday. And we would work that out. So 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, that's the way we would prorata it. Rolled up holiday pay, I got dead excited about when it was reintroduced, because actually it makes life a whole lot easier for businesses where they've got people who, within a 12-month period, they're working variable hours, they're working variable days, they start partway through the year, their employment ends partway through the year. A really nice way, or you've got casual workers, you've got people on 0 hours. A really nice way of calculating this is to have a line on the pay slip that says holiday pay. You pay 12.07% of what they're earning. You kind of keep up to date on the pay side. You have to make sure that if somebody's working with you, that they still get the time off.
Amazing. Oh my gosh.
That's the question.
Yeah, I think it does. Sometimes I feel like it would be so helpful if there's just this amazing website with calculators that can do all these things.
Yes, there is an online, I feel sure that there is an online calculator on the government website about entitlement for holiday. And you can put in whether someone works variable hours, whether someone works set hours, and it will work out what they're entitled to. If an employer gives more than the statutory minimum, obviously then the numbers will be different, because that is calculating on the basis of what the working time regs essentially determine.
Okay.
But if anyone's confused, then they just need to get in touch with us.
Yeah, well, that's my next question for you. So Nicola, how can people connect with you and find out about what you do?
So we've got a dantonhr.com website. They can email me directly. It's nicola@dantonhr.com. I'm on LinkedIn. For those people who are on LinkedIn, I'd love to connect with people. We put lots and lots of content out for employers. We've got email newsletters. We put a lot of content out on LinkedIn. There's loads of resources, free resources on our website that people can get access to as well. We always make sure that anyone in our network gets the updates around changes in employment law, topical stuff going on. We pop blogs out, so it's all there.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. It's been lovely to meet with you both.
Thanks, Nicola. Thanks everyone who's tuned in and joined us for this live episode, including all of our listeners on LinkedIn, like Mark. We're live. Nice to see you all here. We have been live for every episode, I think, for a very long time. So nice to see you here. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.